There's a story the wealth management industry has been telling itself for the past several years that I have never agreed with. The story goes something like this. The future of independent advice belongs to the largest firms. The $100 billion consolidators are inevitable. The trillion-dollar enterprises are on the horizon. And if you're a small firm, your only real options are to sell, to merge into something bigger, or to slowly fade as the industry moves on without you. Get big or die. That's the prevailing narrative. I don't believe it. I never have. And the firm I want to introduce you to today is one of the clearest pieces of evidence I've come across that organic growth is possible at every size, if a firm is willing to commit at a level most firms are not. Peak Retirement Planning is the smallest firm by assets we've featured on this show, sub $1 billion in assets under management as of this recording. They're also the fastest growing. From a 2020 incorporation and a late 2021 operating start, Peak has gone from zero to over $630 million in AUM in under 5 years. They've over doubled the firm in 2025 alone. Their stated goal for 2026 is to nearly double again. That's the headline. But the headline isn't the lesson, because nobody listening to this show is going to replicate Peak's playbook at small scale. The lesson is what becomes possible when a firm treats marketing not as a function that supports the business, but as a function that informs the business. When marketing shapes product, service delivery, client experience, and even hiring, rather than reacting to decisions already made elsewhere in the firm. Peak has built something that is, in their founder's own words, more of a media company than a financial planning business. And that orientation, more than size, more than velocity, is what makes them worth studying. I'll talk with Joe Schmitz Jr., founder and CEO of Peak Retirement Planning, who started the firm at age 25 with a loan against his house, his mom working alongside him at the dining room table, and a willingness to do 150 in-person workshops a year personally for the first 2 years. You'll hear how he built a content marketing engine that now drives 35 leads a week, why he writes all 4 of his books himself and refuses to use AI for any client-facing content, and why he doesn't see a reason to hand off the YouTube channel that has built the firm. You'll also hear from Megan Casselberry, who carries the title of Director of Standards at Peak, a title she'll explain later in the conversation. Megan runs marketing and HR and is the operating partner Joe leans on to keep the firm honest with itself. Growth Leaders of Management tells the stories of firms driving differentiated growth in our industry. Most of the firms we've featured are billion-dollar enterprises with decades of compounding behind them. Peak is the first sub-billion-dollar firm to make it onto this show, and they're here because the lessons embedded in their story are too useful to ignore, especially for the multi-billion-dollar firms who can replicate them at far greater scale. Let's get into it. Today's growth leader is Peak Retirement Planning, a Columbus, Ohio-based RIA founded in late 2021 and now serving over 900 client families across all 50 states. Peak manages over $630 million in assets with a team of over 60 employees and an average age of 24. In 2025, they brought in $300 million in net new assets, which doubled the firm in a single year. And they were named the #1 fastest growing private company in Columbus by Inc. 5000. Their 2026 goal is to bring in $500 million in net new assets, which would nearly double the firm again. To understand how a firm builds that kind of velocity from a standing start, you have to go back to a 25-year-old who left 2 prior firms because the model wasn't going to let him serve clients the way he believed they should be served. Here's founder and CEO Joe Schmitz Jr.
So I was starting the industry with 2 other firms and just decided that it wasn't where I wanted to be the next 50 years. And so ultimately you get an idea of like, hey, if you want change, sometimes you got to do it yourself. So I tried to look out for other firms in the area and just couldn't find anyone that was doing what I felt was the right way of retirement planning, which is completely comprehensive, focusing on more than just investments, not just insurance sales. And so that's where I found myself starting the firm when I was 25 years old with not really any clue of what to do. And so a lot of it was trial by error and figuring it out. And my mom actually quit her job to come help me and start the firm. And that was a huge blessing. And from there, we're now going to be over 70 team members here soon and just seeing tremendous growth.
So I've heard this story from other founders that, it was my prior, where I was at before just wasn't right. It didn't meet the needs that I had for myself. It didn't meet the needs that I had for my clients. And so that motivated me to start something new. Can you dive a little bit deeper into that, Joe? I mean, you had, quick experiences, I'm guessing, out of college at two other firms. At such a young age, what were you able to sort of discern from those experiences that just didn't work for you and the clients that you were serving with more specificity?
Yeah, and I'm sure everyone struggles with this. When you look out in our industry, if you are a good financial planner nowadays, you know that there is not a lot of competition out there from people really truly doing it the right way. It's very flooded with people who are those insurance salespeople that are coming to meetings and they're just proposing insurance products and telling them, hey, yeah, you should do this and we'll get paid a huge commission, then we'll never talk to you again, is really how that plays out. And then you have the other side of it where you have people that are only focused on investment management. They don't have tax prep inside. They don't help with estate planning. They don't do anything besides just managing the investments. And so, I mean, people are oftentimes paying a 1% management fee or even more, and they're not getting any value beyond that investment pillar there. And so I just noticed that, like, coming out of college, I studied financial planning. I was in a financial planning program at Mount Vernon Nazarene University where I played basketball as well. And so I was able to see what's out there. I was able to see it from that lens. And so just when you can taste it and you know it's out there and you know it's like what the good comes from it, you don't really want to do anything besides that. And so that's why I went the path I did at that point. And the two other companies I was with is, premier names. Everyone knew who they were, but they just didn't do that holistic approach. They didn't allow their advisors to do tax planning. They didn't necessarily have the smoothest level of communication to their clients. And it just felt like clients were maybe more of a number and less of, hey, you're going to get the best retirement planning advice, if I'm going to be your advisor. So that's something that I just feel is so important with someone who has their entire life savings that they're looking for someone to help steward that. It's a big responsibility.
You started the firm at a time where you had the reform broker and you had Michael Kitces and you had some existing examples to look to of firms that had built these media empires, right? And who had really leveraged media as an opportunity to drive growth in their business. Versus if you had started a firm even 10, 15, 20 years ago, you just wouldn't have had as many peers to sort of look at and understand how important media and marketing are and can be to the growth of a firm like yours. So if you go back to launch, incorporating in 2020, launching in the end of 2021, was it clear to you from the beginning that being a marketing machine was going to be critical to your growth and you knew you had to invest in it? Or was it sort of like start the firm and learn as you go?
Yeah, I mean, when I first started the firm, the only thing I could think about is I hope I can survive. I hope I can make this work. I mean, all I was focused on was getting the 10 million of assets under management. I mean, when you start from nothing and, I was like, all right, if I get 10 million, now that gets me $100,000 that I can have of revenue. Now I can start to just not be sweating every day, right? I've technically made it because I feel like I can operate a business at the margin. And then you get to 10 million and you're like, oh, wait, like this actually came a little bit easier than I thought. Like, let's see if we can get to 100 million. And it's like, if we get to 100 million, like now I can actually hire a team and we can actually impact even more clients out there and extend our model to help more people that need help. And so we did that. And so obviously, as you know, with scale, like you've got to have something to bring clients in. It's the hardest part of our industry. And back to the young advisors, I mean, there's stats out there that show that 10% of advisors in that sales model where they're responsible for bringing in clients to start, they fail. And so it's a hard endeavor. And so I decided like, hey, I feel like I can do this. Like, I feel like I can bring clients in. I've got this tenacity. I've got, the ways to do it. Like, I'm just going to go all in and then I'm going to provide a place that these young advisors can come to and not have to knock on doors, not have to call their 100 family and friends. They can just plug in and be really good financial planners. And then we're going to build a team around them so that they don't have to do all the paperwork. They don't have to do all the stuff they don't want to do, get to do what they enjoy most. But you got to have a marketing machine to do that. And so the way I explain it to our team is, like, at this point, like, we're more of a media company, we're more of a marketing company than we are even a financial planning business, because you could be the best financial planner out there, but if you have no clients to serve, well, how good is the advice you're actually giving, right? You're only helping 5 people, when if you have a marketing machine, you could be helping 100 people. So it's not an excuse to have a bad product, but it gives you more opportunity to really serve more people. So I'm in it to serve people. I'm in it to serve our team, to serve clients, to serve the industry, to be a platform that others can learn from. And so ultimately, you got to have the platform to do that. And so that's why we've leaned so heavily into marketing.
I want to mark what Joe just said because it is the heart of this episode. Joe said, at peak, we are more of a media company. We are more of a marketing company than we are even a financial planning business. That is not a tagline. It is a structural claim about how the firm is built. The advisory work at Peak is organized to serve the inbound demand the engine creates. The firm is not a financial planning company that markets itself. It's a media operation company that delivers exceptional financial planning. Most firms in this industry are still oriented the other way around, with marketing as a downstream function reacting to decisions already made elsewhere. The shift Peak has made, treating marketing as the upstream input that informs product, service delivery, and client experience, is something every firm in our audience can take something from, even those that will never operate at Peak's level of intensity. I want to talk about the velocity of your firm's growth. So you started at the end of 2021, and as it sits today, roughly in the middle of 2026, you're at 630 in assets under management. 630 million in assets under management. So from 0 to 630 million in under 5 years, that's remarkable growth. So talk me through when did that velocity really pick up? And I think what you told me in preparation for this conversation is that you're planning to onboard 500 million in net new assets in 2026 alone, which would almost double the size of the firm. So when did that velocity really pick up, and what do you attribute that velocity to?
Yeah, and we've over doubled our firm every year since we've been in business. Last year, we did 300 million of net new assets. And so that doubled the firm just in that year too. And so we just, YouTube really took off for us. That was one of the big moments for our firm. I started the firm just being gritty. Like, I did 150 workshops a year, lots of evenings, just made it work. And then during that time, I just focused on building my brand, building my personal brand, building Peak's brand, and just doing content marketing. I've written 4 books. The first book I wrote was called I Hate Taxes. I would say that's really what put us on the map. That, and also being featured in Kiplinger. So I'm part of their Kiplinger Advisor Intel group. So there's a few of us advisors who write content for them. And so I have 2 articles that get featured there every month, and we get hundreds of thousands of views on some of those articles. And so a combination of all that stuff playing together has really been what's made it work. But I can't really point to just one thing. It's all the work that we've done to do that. And so I just believe that in order for people to know who you are, you got to let them know who you are. And so that was kind of the whole point of content marketing. And like, I'm not a guy who enjoys going and doing a steak dinner for people, or knocking on doors, as I said earlier. So like, I enjoy educating. I enjoy showing value and letting people decide if they feel like this is something they want to do or not. And so that's how all of our content is designed. It's designed just to add value first, and see what comes from it. And I just saw there wasn't a lot of people doing that. There wasn't a lot of people doing video when I started doing video. There wasn't a lot of people writing content. The average agent advisor is 56. Most of them have great businesses of their own. They don't really see a need to keep growing. And so that's kind of where we stepped up and, just stepped right into that opportunity.
You did 150 workshops in your first year in business?
Yeah, first 2 years of business consecutively. So a lot of work, but I think a lot of people, I use the saying of shovel manure. I think young people in our industry, they need to learn how to shovel manure and do hard things. And what you'll grow through that adversity, you'll grow so much. You'll never see tougher challenges. You'll see everything that you'll grow so much through. So we always try to tell our young team of like, hey, when I see you struggle, I am right there with my arm around you and saying, keep going, because this is going to be incredible. But I'm not going to sit there and coddle you. I'm not going to sit there and feel bad for you. I'm going to see this as an opportunity. Every adversity is an opportunity. So that's something we always look forward to.
Did you launch YouTube right when you started the firm, or did that come later?
So a little later, but pretty shortly after I started the firm. But what a lot of people forget with YouTube is that you don't just post one video and have hundreds of thousands of views. It's consistent time. I mean, we posted videos for about a year, probably a year and a half before we even started to get any traction. So, it's posting a video and you've got 6 views on it, and one of them's probably my mom, the other's probably Megan. It's like a couple guys at the office. There's not a lot of traction, right? And then, all of a sudden you start to hit the algorithm and it all starts working together and your content gets better and you get better delivering it. And I always tell people, like, go watch my first YouTube video and go watch my most recent, and they will see how much you can grow by just talking in front of a camera. But I don't think a lot of people want to do that. Like, it's hard to talk in front of a camera. You have to have charisma.
So how many videos were you posting early on? I mean, is the cadence today similar to when you started?
Yeah, 3 videos a week is kind of what I've committed to for years now, and I've just stuck to it. It's a lot of videos. It's a lot of early mornings, late nights, where you've got to make sure you get those videos done for the next week so we don't miss anything. But for the last 2-3 years, I've been able to keep up with it with no problem.
And was there something specific after that year and a half mark when the algorithm started picking up Jono's retirement and you started to feel more momentum around the show? Was it the content that you were sharing, or was it really just that you had consistently been delivering 3 new episodes a week? Like, can you attribute the velocity change to anything in particular?
Yeah, I just think the content was valuable. I've seen other people that have done YouTube for that amount of time as well, and it never picked up. And so when I watch their videos, it's like, yeah, I don't really enjoy watching these videos, to be kind of blunt. I mean, like, you got to have a good product to catch that type of traction. So I was just a student of the game. I just focused on all the small things. How do we make the editing look sharp? We hired a graphic designer, we hired a full-time video editor, and we just went all into it. It was a big risk because it's like, we don't know if this is going to work. I have all these videos, but no proof that it actually works, but let's see what we can do.
It sounds like you're investing quite a bit into marketing from day one, potentially before you were even cash flow positive on the business. Did you have to make investments from a marketing perspective that made you uncomfortable in the beginning because your revenue didn't necessarily substantiate the investments that you were making?
Yeah, no, I actually took out a loan on my house to be able to start the firm. And so I was able to save up the 3 years that I was with other companies right out of college. And I took out a loan out of my house and I said, I hope this works. And I lived with the fact of, like, if it doesn't, man, it'll be a cool story. I mean, like, how many people get an opportunity to start a business at 25? And I was like, single, no kids at this time. Hey, I can afford to fail. I can afford to go through this. And I was just thinking, again, back to the show manure concept, like, how much will I grow just through this experience nonetheless? And so that was the mindset I had. But yeah, I mean, you're paying, those workshops to get people to show up to the workshops. I mean, that costs money to do. Sometimes, you're paying to get people to come in, and then you don't even know if they're going to show. Like, there's going to be nights where no people even register, even attend. And so, you just have to be able to be prepared for that. And, the Game of Numbers, the Nick Murray book, and I think a great book for any advisor out there that is struggling with this concept. But in order to make money, you've got to spend money. And so I think that's been a big marketing thing all along for us, is just trusting that you're going to get an outflow from that product, if you have everything working the right way.
In order to make money, you have to spend money. That is the Nick Murray principle Joe just referenced, and it is exactly what many firms in this industry get wrong about marketing. They get so caught up on ROI math, on attribution and cost per lead, that they underinvest in the very thing that would drive their growth. The firms that build engines like Peaks are usually the firms that committed before they could prove the return. That kind of conviction also creates an operating reality. Somebody has to hold the standards in place while the founder builds the channel. I wanted to hear from that person next. Megan, I want to touch base with you. You know, your formal title is Director of Standards. I think you wear a lot of hats, marketing, operations, probably lots in between. So tell me a little bit about your role at the firm and how you came to peak retirement.
Yeah, so it's a really fun story. As Joe mentioned, we've known each other since college. So we actually led a Bible study for athletes. That's how we became friends and then stayed in touch after college. And Joe always gives me the hardest time because when he first started Peak, he actually reached out to me and was like, "Hey, would you want to come on and help with some of the marketing?" And long story short, circumstances and timing wasn't right for me. And so I had said no at that point, but still tried to be involved and just give him my perspective on like the logo and some of the branding and some of those things. So it feels like I've been a part of Peak since the very beginning. And so he never lets me live that down. And I still kick myself to this day. But now getting to be here full time, it's just so full circle for me. And as Joe said, like getting to build something incredible with people that you just have a great relationship with, who are great and dear friends, who can wholeheartedly trust. We have a ton of other friends and family who work here. It is just so fun. And so came on to really head up our marketing department and then ended up stepping into hiring as well, some of operations too. But we always say in our hiring process, we are a startup. And so if you are not willing to just do whatever it takes to help serve our clients and help our firm, like it's really not going to be a good fit. So it's truly such an incredible opportunity though to just get your hands in so many different things and be able to see the impact that you can have on building things here.
Megan, I'd love to talk to you a little bit about the brand because I know that you've been, you know, at the firm. You said you gave some advice early days on the logo and you were sort of a friend of the firm before you became a full-time employee of the firm. I've noticed some trademark language around peak retirement with the types of clients that you serve, the Midwestern Millionaire and the 2% Club. Can you just talk me through how those sort of ideal client profiles were created and then trademarked? Was it strategy first, or was that really coming out of the content? Like, talk me through that process.
Yeah, so I cannot take credit for any of that. That was absolutely 110% Joe. A lot of it, Midwestern Millionaire, that is our clientele of who we serve. That is the client. I mean, that's what Joe grew up around. That's what I grew up around. Those are our parents. And so it is those hardworking, frugal, diligent savers. And the people who come to us, they're so good at saving money, but they have a really hard time spending money. And so that's where Midwestern Millionaire came from. And then with the 2% Club, really just niching down of seeing that there's not really anyone out there who's serving people who have pensions and the specific planning and more intentional planning that comes with that. And so that's how the 2% was founded. But, Joe is truly the marketing brainchild in terms of the creativity behind that. And so it's been great though for our firm and just how much it resonates with the people who hear our content. They like literally on a weekly basis, we hear on calls, "Oh my goodness, I listened to Joe's YouTube channel. I read this Kiplinger article and that is me. You're describing me to a T. I have frozen blueberries in my freezer too, just like Joe, because I want to save money on things." And so it's really fun.
So, Joe, talk me through that process from your perspective. I mean, did you know starting the firm that these were the types of clients that you wanted to serve, or was it kind of an outcome of the marketing that you were doing and the types of clients that were coming in?
Yeah, I mean, definitely looking back, this is who I wanted to serve when I started the firm. But when you first started the firm, you're like, I'll serve anyone. Like, I just want to be able to make this work, right? So it wasn't realistic to serve them. But as we started having success, took a step back. And something I've done since I started the firm, I think it's been a big part of our growth is like on Saturdays, like I'll go to a coffee shop, just get away, and I will just work on the business. I will just think high level, what do we need to do to be more successful? What do we need to do to get better results for our team, better results for our clients, better results just to be able to deliver this to more people. So that has been a big part of our success. That's where I've written my books during that time. It's just a great time for deep intentional work. And so during that time, I was just thinking, I was like, all right, like the first book I wrote, I Hate Taxes. Okay, why did I write that? Is because everyone kept coming to us because of our tax focus. I started to have a love for just helping people save money on taxes. I noticed that no advisors were talking about it. I'm like, I'm going all into this. So that developed a niche that was like, people came to us because their advisor never did taxes. And then I was like, all right, what's next? Okay. So a lot of people come to us because we have all these professionals in one place. We do tax prep, we help facilitate estate planning, all that. So the next book I wrote was on our 5-pillar approach. And so I was like, all right, we'll call it the 5 pillars because these are the 5 areas of retirement that we're focused on: estate, taxes, income, investments, all the healthcare, all the things that matter to a retiree. And that attracted a crowd. They're like, you guys do taxes and all of this. My advisor's only doing one of those 5. I'll work with you guys. So that was where I was at in the first 2 books. And I was like, okay, we're starting to see a more consistent person come into us. Most of them have $1 million or more. Most of them are just hardworking people. We didn't get many business owners or many people that, came from wealth. Like, most of them just were paycheck to paycheck, and they're from a small rural community like where I grew up. And so I connected well with that group. My parents are that way. My aunts and uncles are that way. The people who coached me in sports growing up were that way. And so I enjoyed it. And it was rewarding. And so that's where the book, The Midwestern Millionaire, came from. Because I'm like, who has Midwestern values? Like, when you think of someone with Midwestern values, you think of someone who's hardworking, someone who's extremely frugal, someone who's a diligent saver, they're family oriented. They've got great values, whether that's Christian values or just, want to do the right thing, conservative values oftentimes too. I was like, I want to serve that crowd. And so we just talk about them now. And then the last one, the book that I wrote, was called The 2% Club. And notice how I wrote a book on all these themes, because now that cements it. It cements the fact that, like, that's who we are and that's who we serve. And so it's resonating with people. When they think of us, they think of those terms. And then the 2% Club, we started to get a lot of people coming to us for pensions. And a lot of that's, my mom was a federal employee. When I first started in the industry, I served people with pensions. We have a lot of clients that have pensions. And so I realized that when these people with pensions come to us, they're not getting that type of help. They're not getting that specific type of planning help where they're realizing that they have a high income and a high net worth in retirement. So, the 2% Club has to do with having a pension and $1 million plus saved, and that combination of things. And so that's where we've gotten to where we are with those niches.
Do you write these books yourself, Joe?
Yes, completely. 100%. I won't use AI to write a book. I won't use a ghostwriter to write a book. I'm a big believer in anything content. It has to come from a human being. And we're seeing that nowadays with AI. I cannot stand seeing content by AI. If I see it, I scroll and I lose respect for whoever posted that. And so I just think that, we're going to really be able to differentiate ourselves in marketing by just being a human being that connects with others and giving them what they want, and authentic. And, that's what it's all about. So, but yeah, wrote the whole thing by myself. First book took me a long time to do. Once I got the groove of it, the last 3 have been a lot smoother. But yeah, we will not use that with our content.
I love your take on how you are or are not leveraging AI in your business, because there's so much talk and debate in the industry around AI as, an enabler and a productivity tool and a way to capture and gain efficiencies. And there are many ways by which firms today are leveraging AI to do those things. Content is one of them. At the same time, I agree with you and feel and believe wholeheartedly that the beauty of this business is the human to human relationship between the advisor and the client. And it is fundamentally a relationship that's built on trust. And so I agree with you completely that making sure that the humans stay at the center of that relationship is critical. And that does flow through to everything. It flows through to your prospect and client experience, the content that you create, your client communications. I mean, really every touch point. And so your validation on that point around how you will not leverage AI to create content is really interesting to me. I wonder if there's anything you've tested and tried that you thought, oh, this might help in this specific area from a content creation perspective, that you just scrapped because it didn't meet your standards.
We'll use it for idea generation, at least to be like, all right, what topics on videos do we want to, YouTube do we want to do videos on? So that will help with just some ideas to brainstorm on, maybe help with a script too, to kind of give us some talking points or to audit things. But we try to stay very clear, because I've even ran stuff through it of like, hey, do a LinkedIn post for me. And it just annoys me. I'm just like, what in the world? This is not me. Like, this is soft. Like, this is not the content I want to represent my brand of who I am personally. So, yeah, I mean, when it starts to like use like softening language, it's like, no, I want to be really direct with my content and I want to make a statement and be bold. So, and I know you can tell AI to do those things and you can try to do it, but it's really hard to make it your voice. So, I've got a big presence on LinkedIn and I try to do a lot of content for young professionals on there specifically. And so I want it to be my voice and I want it to be different than what they typically see in their feed.
And to give perspective, our entire marketing department, we have a checklist of 4 items that we run everything through. It's at 4th grade level. Keep it simple, be very concise. Does it have personality? Does it stand out? And then the last one, which is my favorite, what would Joe pick apart? So that's really the filter that we're running everything through from a content standpoint.
Tell me about the marketing department, Megan. For a firm that is so active with their marketing efforts, what does the team look like to support that?
So surprisingly, most people would probably think we have a giant marketing team, but Joe always makes fun of me because I say it a certain way, but I'm like, we are small but mighty. We run very lean operations here, but we're able to because of the quality and caliber of people that we're hiring, that A+ player that Joe talked about. Everyone is really pitching in. Like, there's no hiding when it's a small team. Every single person has to carry their weight and be involved with a ton of different things. You know, for example, we have someone who's involved with hiring, but they also help with events. I mean, we're a startup here. No one is above doing anything.
Wow, that's amazing. And are you doing all of the production work in-house or do you have partners for that?
Yeah, everything in-house. We believe in insourcing everything possible. Quality goes down when you outsource, in my opinion, for most things. And so that's why with clients we serve, we've tried to insource everything as well, that they're going to need. And so, yeah, everything on our team, we've insourced our hiring, we've insourced our video editing, graphic design. We just don't trust that people will have the same extreme standards that we have. Lost the trust for humanity, maybe in a sense, but I think it's just also just a belief in like, we train people up to just be very particular and just to be very aware that everything we do matters. And that's the focus we have. And I'm just afraid that if we outsource that, people aren't going to be in our environment to understand how strict we are. Like we've had recruiters that we've tried to experiment with and they fired us. We've had other marketing people we've worked with and it takes 10 revisions to get what we want. Versus having it in-house, we can get it done right away. So it just makes it smoother all around and just saves me some headaches. It saves Megan some headaches and we sleep better at night doing it that way.
So you talked earlier about having additional services on top of the on top of the investment management. So you said taxes, estate planning, insurance. So all of that is done in-house. You have whoever's doing tax prep works at peak retirement. Whoever is drafting the estate planning documents works at peak retirement.
Yeah, so for tax prep, we do everything in-house, everything's internal. For estate planning, it gets tricky because obviously the estate planning rules, so we have to be more careful about that. We also serve clients in every state, so it starts to become more complex on that. But we're involved in every part of the process. We're in every single meeting. We help with the facilitation, make sure everything gets done. So a little more unique there. But also with the insurances that you mentioned, most of our crowd's in retirement, so we're helping them with things like Medicare, right? Helping them find the right supplemental plan if they retire before 65, helping them find the right private plan, whether that's ACA or something in that nature. So we've tried to bring everything in-house. We even try to have further conversations with our clients about, hey, what can we do to help you plan that next trip, that next vacation, right? And so just trying to be more of that concierge service is something that we've really tried to take a step to ensure we can just deliver that white glove service fully to clients.
We've talked about how Peak built the marketing engine and how the client niches got their name. Coming up, I want to get into the economics of running it, the actual unit economics of Peak's lead engine, who they will and who they won't accept as a client, and the place where Joe's argument about the hybrid RIA and insurance model genuinely gets contrarian. We'll be right back. Pod Pony is the all-in-one podcast partner for thought leaders and business owners. They provide everything you need for your podcast, including audio and video engineering, graphic design, podcast social media support, on-site filming, and more. From initial concepts and strategies to production and distribution, the experts at Pod Pony are with you every step of the way. Learn more about Pod Pony by visiting podpony.com and start your podcast journey today. Now let's get back to the show. Picking up where we left off. So far, we have heard the philosophical case for building Peak as a media company first. The next set of questions I wanted to put to Joe was the economic case, because the marketing engine he has built only matters if the unit economics of the business support it. And the answer is structurally different from what most firms in our audience are running. I know from experience that it can be really difficult to do all of that when you're at 630 million in assets under management. I mean, there's just real revenue that comes out of those assets, and it's a firm that's aggressively growing, but you haven't met the billion marker yet. 2 to 5 billion is oftentimes where we see firms have the capability and the capacity to really expand services. So what are you doing differently that other firms of your size haven't figured out? Just from a profit and loss perspective, like there are real expenses required to have all of those services built in-house, to be making these marketing investments in-house, but you're doing it quite successfully.
Yeah, I think a few things. One is like we pour everything we make back into the business. Like I don't take out any large withdrawals from the business. I don't have a need for it. I don't have a care for it. My mission is just serving this business well. And so, that's just everything's gone into the growth. I think that's a big point of why. The other reason why too is like we like our marketing expense may be, a good amount, but we're very efficient in our marketing approach because of how much we've built things up to this point. I mean, YouTube's pretty much self-going now. Like we're getting 35 leads a week from our marketing. Our cost per client is so much lesser than the industry average. I mean, the industry average is like $5,500 for a client. We don't pay anywhere near that. And so, yes, we spend on marketing and we invest in marketing probably more than most, but we don't have to overspend to get a client as well. And so a lot of our efforts are more branding to even drive that cost of client lower as time goes on, or, allow us to have more volume is something that we look at. So I think that's a big piece. But the other piece too is like, the insurance focus to what we do. Like we are not just paid fees and that's it. Like we are a full service shop. And so instead of telling that person to go down the street to get the insurance product they need, we can do it in-house, which means that we're going to be able to get paid on that. And obviously we are a fiduciary in everything we do. So we're not going to have a sense of conflict of interest in that nature of saying, hey, because we get paid more, we're putting all your money in insurance. Like that's just not how we operate. And so that is another source of revenue for us that allows us to, pour that back into the business as well. So, again, just not being a single direction of how we get paid in that sense. But from an investment standpoint, we only do it on a fee base there. We don't get paid commissions on the investment side. We don't get paid more to offer one investment versus the other.
There are some fiduciaries who will say that if you're accepting commissions on insurance, that how can you not be swayed by the different payouts of different products? So how do you manage that internally?
Yeah. And my response to them would be, well, what if your client needs insurance and you don't offer insurance? So like, are you just leaving your client stranded? Like, are you acting as a fiduciary in that nature as well? And if you pulled clients out there and you asked them, hey, if you need insurance, would you like us to get that? And would you like us to get paid for that? Or would you want us to send you down the street? I guarantee 99% of those people would say, I want you to do it in-house because I trust you. I trust you with my life savings. I know that you're not going to do something for the firm's best interest to do that. And so that's my belief. But even when you look at some of the products out there, I fully think that those that are fee only are acting in their clients, not in their best interest. For example, I mean, there's, fixed income, fixed annuity products or insurance products right now that you can get a guaranteed 5% rate on. I mean, the alternative of that is you go do a CD or you go do a money market or you go do a treasury. Well, our 1% fee has to come out of that. So the net return the client's getting is probably less than 5%. And so who's actually acting in the best interest under that approach if the client wants that sense of protection? Now, a lot of our clients have pensions, they have $1 million plus or more. So we don't write a ton of insurance by any means. There's some advisors out there that will push 60, 70% of their clients' money into annuities as an example. We don't do that. If a client says, I don't want any insurance and I want you to only operate as a fee only advisor, great. We won't even show any insurance. We don't have to operate in that nature if we don't want to, or if the client doesn't want to. But just having that in our tool belt, I feel like truly allows us to best serve clients. And so that's something I'm really passionate about. I actually get upset when advisors say that, because I'm like, well, are you just saying you're a bad advisor? Like, are you saying you don't trust yourself to serve clients in that way? And I think we all look at the lowest common denominator. Like, we all think of the guy who just slings the insurance products. And that's obviously not who we are, and it will never be close to that. And so I'm confident, and I sleep well at night, and I just feel we're doing the right thing for the client in the way we approach things.
I want to give Joe's argument the space it deserves, because it is the most substantive defense of the hybrid RIA and insurance model that we have heard on this show. Most all prior guests in this catalog have been RIA-led or fee-only, and the editorial tone of the industry conversation tends to treat fee-only as the gold standard. Joe is the first guest to argue the opposite case on the record. 3 pieces of his argument are worth holding on to. First, that some clients genuinely need insurance products, and a firm that refuses to provide them is making a fiduciary choice with consequences. Second, that the conflict of interest concern can be neutralized by removing commissions from advisor compensation. And third, that the comparison between a 5% fixed annuity and a treasury net of a 1% AUM fee is a real economic question for many retirees, not a theoretical one. You don't have to agree with the framing to recognize that the argument is more defensible than the orthodoxy gives it credit for. And for the firms in our audience who have moved fully fee only, the question worth asking is whether your service model is actually capturing every place a client needs help, or whether some of that help is being outsourced to someone else who may not be as aligned to the client as you are. I want to go back to a data point that you shared, Joe, to make sure that I heard it correctly. I think you said that today, all of your different media channels, you're getting about 35 new leads per week, and that you're able to serve 10. So you have capacity today to serve 10 new clients per week?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
And what's your conversion ratio on that 35 coming in? I mean, are you bringing in more than you can serve, or you still have some room?
Yeah, so out of those 35, we're bringing on about 10 right now as our conversion rate of that. But with all the 35 that are coming in, I mean, we're not looking to work with all of those, of course. So we have specific criteria at this point. We have a minimum of $1 million or more is who we start working with. And most of our clients have pensions at this point as well. And if the client's difficult or if they're rude, we don't even try to do it. If they're going to be really specific or they're going to be causing pain for our team, we don't bring them on at all. And so, like we know in order to scale the best, you got to have clients that really trust you and that, are easy to work with. And we've noticed that team members get really stressed when you got to work with that client who's just has a million questions. And again, as Megan says, like they have a million questions and we answer all of them, but we get to the same result. So we just realized all right, well, in order to best serve people at scale, we need people who are going to trust our advice and not challenge us or not try to do all these different things. And so we're very collaborative with clients. We don't, force them to invest in any specific products or investments or anything like that. But we need to be working together and cohesively, or it's just not going to be a good relationship. So that's where a lot of our focus is now. And like, if we get someone that comes in, they may have $6 million, but if they're difficult, we just say, yeah, we're not going to work with them. And so our process is very dialed in. Like, it's very selective. And we tell that to prospects specifically, like, hey, we aren't able to bring in everyone. So like in our questionnaire for onboarding, one of the questions is, why are you a good fit to work with Peak Retirement Planning? And so we've kind of twisted the narrative there, because now we are the one that is deciding if we want to work with people. It's not them saying, well, tell me everything about you. Tell me, all the details. Like, well, we can, but like, are we even a good fit? So now it's a mutual way. And that's, I believe, best for the client too, because now you can truly both decide together if it's a good fit. Like, we'll push people away if we feel it's not a good fit, or, some people, that are super excited. We have to tell them like, hey, it may not be the best fit. So just being really particular around that has helped us a lot.
Peak's conversion ratio is the result of 2 filters running in parallel. The marketing engine pulls a specific kind of prospect into the pipeline. The intake questionnaire reverses the dynamic and asks the prospect to make the case for themselves. The result is a firm declining 25 qualified prospects a week including $6 million prospects on temperament rather than assets. Most firms in this industry talk about ideal client fit. Few practice it at this stage of the funnel. ICP discipline is not a slide in a strategic plan. It is a posture that has to be defended at the gate every week by people who have the authority to say no to the assets the firm doesn't want. So we've talked a lot about the marketing machine that is peak retirement, but you're also really a hiring machine. And you've placed some pretty big bets on developing next generation talent. And my observation is that most firms in your peer group are really competing more for the experienced CFPs, the experienced financial advisors. And you're deliberately hiring out of college and training. You've got your peak U and your peak boot camp. Did you have experiences early on trying to hire experienced advisors that didn't work? Or did you have this sense from the very beginning that you were going to go after the college grads and focus on training and development?
Yeah, we experimented with everything to start. I mean, we hired everyone, and what stuck and what didn't? Well, what worked is the younger advisors who were hungry and passionate and didn't have bad habits to break. Who is no longer with us? Well, those experienced advisors who thought they knew what they were doing and they wanted to do it their way, and it just didn't work for what we were doing. I mean, people have to remember, clients come to us from the content I produce. They're coming for a specific message, for a specific process, for a specific approach. If you start to have an advisor that is different or deviates from that, the clients don't want to work with us. They're like, well, I didn't sign up for this. I signed up for what Joe talks about. Why are you guys different? So we've leaned all into that. And we just felt like hiring young advisors has allowed us to grow them up the way we want to grow. But exactly as you said, Meg, like there's not enough people going after them right now. So it's a wide open pool. I mean, this summer we'll have over 30 interns here at our firm. And our goal is to get as many of those to be full-time when they graduate as possible. And we feel like that's going to be what's going to help us get through this bottleneck of not having enough talent, right? There's a talent shortage everywhere you look in our industry. But I think people are going for the wrong people, right? As you said, everyone's going off after those experienced CFPs with 3 to 10 years of experience, right? You know, just enough time to get their feet wet, but not enough time to feel like they got the golden handcuffs on them. Everyone's going after that crowd. Well, we just feel like we can grow them up. We've got a great training program. We've got selfless people on our team that want to mentor and help people grow. They wouldn't be where they are if they didn't have others pouring to them. And so they're really looking to train that next person and then to see them train that next person and then just continue on down the path.
Last year, you had 5,400 applicants to come and they applied to come and work at Peak Retirement. You hired 19. That's like less than 40 basis points of a hiring rate. And that's remarkable. I don't think that I've come across another firm that has had such robust talent pipelines. So is that a direct reflection of this brand that you've built, the fact that you are this media company, marketing machine? Are these people following you? They following your channels before they apply? Or how are you able to do that?
We are very efficient. So we have a lot of systems and processes built out. A lot of it can even be automated in the sense of like, we're not personally emailing all of these people. You press a button and okay, you're moved on to the next step, or you didn't make it to this next step. We're going to part ways as friends at this point. But also too, we've made a lot of tweaks and changes. You know, for example, earlier on, that first touch point interview was with a live person. Now we've switched it to a one-way video interview to leverage technology there. And now they have a live interview if they make it to the second point. So just those small tweaks and improvements, but it's the same thing as a marketing department of every single department here at Peak is very lean and efficient. And we do it that way so we can operate at such a high volume because you truly do need those numbers in order to find the absolute best candidates.
So they submit a one-way video that's scanned through, it sounds like a technology tool. And then the next step is a one-on-one interview. What are the other parts of your very rigorous process?
Yes, it's a long process, and we do it that way for a reason, because you would be amazed at the amount of people who drop off at certain points. And so they submit that one-way video interview. So we're asking them questions. We want to just get to know them better. We watch that, make a determination based off of that. We send them some resources to review. Then they schedule that second interview. Then we send them a packet of information just about us. And honestly, it takes a handful of hours to go through all of that content. So really getting buy-in from them. Then based on that is whether or not we schedule a third interview. And then after that point is when it really starts to get more serious of many people don't make it to that third interview. And so if they're making it beyond that point, it's potentially looking like it could be a pretty good fit. So we schedule a dinner. So that is with the candidate and another team member so we can get to know them better, give them perspective from someone else on the team. We do a reflection activity, give them some more resources, podcasts to listen to, get their thoughts on that, do a case study, which is a hands-on activity so we can see what do they know and what does the quality of work that they produce look like. We grade the case study. That grade holds a significant weight in our overall decision. And then the last step in our hiring process is a shadow experience, which is getting to come in and experience being here on site, seeing us during all of our meetings on a Monday, and getting to just experience our culture in person. And so very rigorous hiring process. Most people don't make it all the way until the end, but for those that do, by the time they get to that point, they're like, oh my goodness, this is exactly what I'm looking for. And there's zero hesitations, zero red flags that have not been addressed at that point.
That level of rigor is truly remarkable. I'm not sure that I've experienced or seen anything like that inside this industry or outside this industry. And is there a dedicated team that manages that process?
The beautiful thing is with us being a startup, we have our entire team involved in that process. And so, different team members will, dedicate and serve by giving their evenings to go and meet with candidates. And so we have one person who does a ton of the grunt work, does a lot of that work on the hiring stand front, but then the team really pitches in the other areas.
And Joe, you mentioned that you don't compensate based on commission. So how are your CFPs compensated?
Yeah, so we, mostly hire out of college. So we, when they start off at just typically a lower salary. And then our goal is to get them up to six figures within 2 to 3 years. And then, we have a barbell approach. So those that are experienced, that reach the point where it's like, all right, they're going to be successful here. They got their CFP. We also encourage our advisors to get something called the Certified King Advisor. It's a credential for Christian financial planners that we do a lot of planning around. And that's what we base our firm around too, is Christian conservative values. And so, we pay those people really well. I mean, six figures for someone in Columbus who's 23, 24 years old to serve clients as a financial planner and not have to do sales or marketing. Like, that's a pretty good, compensation there. And then over time, we're going to look to pay them more when they can start to get into a coaching role where they can truly coach other advisors, where they can not only train, but hold people accountable to our standards, help duplicate themselves is the term we use. And then they have unlimited upside as we go. And then we do fun startup bonuses is what I call them, where we want our team to participate in the growth. So as we grow over time, we give bonuses. Like one of the bonuses upcoming, a lot of our team members will just get a flat $20,000 bonus just for being a part of the growth that we've seen. And so, as we grow, as we have more revenue to do so, that's something I'm really passionate about, is to ensure our team is rewarded and taken care of. I want our team to feel extremely protected around me specifically, but at peak. The people work hard here. They made a decision to sacrifice to be with us, and I want for them to be forever rewarded.
I wanted to ask you a question about your training program, but it sounds to me by what you just shared, Joe, that you're sort of, well, you can tell me, like, do you have a formal training department and training program, or is it really through that like peer-to-peer coaching and mentoring that you're able to lift everyone up?
Yeah, kind of everything. We've got it very structured out. So we have a year-long program they go through. Every single morning for an hour, we do an experienced advisor does a training on parts of our process, whether it's Roth conversions or whether it's estate planning or whether it's how do you communicate to clients who have struggle. We do a lot of role play of, hey, a client says this, how are we supposed to respond to help them feel more comfortable? So it's just a very thorough training program. We make them go through a bunch of requirements. We've got everything built out into a learning management system. And, they really have to get after it it and likely work some extra hours to start to really get up to speed to where we need them to be. And we tell them that up front, like, hey, we're taking a sacrifice hiring you right out of college. Like, you gotta pull your weight. Like, we're gonna pull our weight and we're going to get you to where you need to be, but you got to be willing to put in the time and effort as well. And we have them go through all the credentialing, and we actually have an internal credential as well that we make them take a test and meet all those requirements before they can even do that. We make them do Toastmasters, and outside we have an internal Toastmasters group to help them with their public speaking. So it's a very thought out program, and new advisors don't go around twiddling their thumbs within their first year. That's for sure. They get after it and they grow a ton.
How many of those planners that you hire make it through their first year? Because I have to imagine with that level of rigor, there's drop off.
Yeah, most of them make it through because of our hiring. I mean, we've made it, that's what we try to do in our hiring is scare them away so that we don't have high turnover. So, I mean, we've had the healthy turnover of a startup because of all the iterations that we've had over the years, but we haven't had extreme turnover by any means. And so as we've gone, it's actually become less and less as we continue to get things formalized. And as we're able to communicate better to people before they start of what to expect. But we have a very strict 90-day probationary period too. So like we're cutting ties before it even gets to that year mark if we need to. We're not going to waste our time. We're not going to waste their time. We know if it's going to work or not. So we just try to get ahead of it. So yeah, not an issue at all. If someone sticks with us for that long, it's typically, they're going to be a lifer with us is the way we see it.
So you have 30 interns coming in this summer. Did I hear that correct?
Yeah.
So are they all interns that you think will convert immediately into full-time roles, or are they still in school? I mean, I guess I'm trying to understand like how many of those 30 interns will become full-time financial planners at peak retirement?
Yeah. So they're interns in all departments. So not just financial planners, but most of them will intern this summer and then they'll go back to school and then they won't start with us until next year. So there'll be a year gap there is what most of them are. But Ohio State's right in our backyard, so we get a lot of students from there. There's some other schools here in Columbus as well. So they'll be able to work with us fall and spring as well, and be able to get some more experience there. But yeah, this is a long-term play. It doesn't help our immediate need for advisors, which we do have an immediate need. I mean, we have about 35 leads coming a week. We can only bring on about 10 clients right now as our capacity. And so obviously we'd love to grow that, but we're not just going to hire 100 advisors and deliver poor service. I mean, anyone that becomes a client of ours is going to get an extreme standard of plan. And, we're never going to water that down just to add more, assets or whatever it may be. So, but yeah, that's the intern program is a hopeful long-term endeavor. Last year, we had a much lower number of interns, but all of them were hired back full time and came back. So, that's something that, we feel like is going to be successful because as they see our environment and they see who we are and how we are, and again, the interns go through the same rigorous hiring process as the others. So once they get here and they're vetted and they see us, I mean, a lot of them say, yeah, this is where I'd love to be. There's not a better place.
I know that you had a situation where you opened another office in Dayton, not, obviously within Ohio, but not your Columbus office. And then you closed it because you just found that it didn't work for you. Can one of you quickly talk me through that experience?
Yeah, I mean, it could have worked, but we just had so much other success from all these people coming to work with us virtually that we just weren't prepared for. And so we're like, all right, well, all resources on deck. We can go get a smaller ROI over in Dayton, or we can focus everyone in Columbus and we can just get a better ROI here and to be able to serve more people or more in our niche focus of who we serve. So it was a learning experience to realize like you never know what's ahead, right? And so at that time, starting that office was the best decision we should have made for the firm. We couldn't have imagined that we were going to have all these leads funnel in online that we didn't have before. And so that was the main reason for the decision. That decision, though, was very costly to us because we had a lot of team members that we hired to start out there. And then when we made the switch and said, hey, like, you got to come to Columbus, we're not doing the Dayton office anymore, they decided to part ways, obviously. And so it was a big cost of getting them trained up, to our standards. And then they ended up not being here. And that's been like one of the biggest things from our turnover is just people that were we had start in we also were looking to start an office in Cleveland as well. So most of our turnovers come from those two locations specifically. And so it's just a big lesson, just focusing on the culture here. And what we noticed too is that people here were trying to start their own culture in Dayton as an example. It's like, yeah, it ain't going to work that way. Here's how we do things. Here's how we're going to do it. If you don't like it, you can go to the firm down the street, but we do things a very particular way. And it's not going to be anyone starting their own brand of peak retirement. Like if you want to go do that, go start your own firm. But we want everyone to be very aligned in our processes, our investment philosophy, how we're structured, as we talked about earlier, because that's what people are expecting. So it just allowed us to come together as a team. I'm a big believer in office 5 days a week. The collaboration, we don't do any virtual work. And I just think that the relationships that we've grown with our team members in that nature, you're going to hang out a little bit more. We've got a weight room at our office. You're going to hang out a little bit more after work or before work or where you're eating lunch, where you're just not going to have that ability when you're working remote, or problems are going to happen. It's so much easier to just collaborate, talk it through. And we just found a lot more togetherness in that approach.
I'm curious about how you think about sort of diversified responsibility and accountability across the firm as the firm grows. So when you're looking at your content today, your YouTube channel, your podcasts, the books, Kiplinger's, all of the places that you're showing up across channels, it's really you, Joe. You know, peak retirement planning in that way is it's you, it's one person. So as the business grows, do you think that will stay the same, or do you have plans to sort of diversify the presence and the people behind the firm?
Yeah, I mean, from a diversification standpoint, the firm, I mean, our team is incredible. Like I get to really focus on specific things at this point. I am not in the everyday. I don't meet with clients. I don't do any of the detailed work. So I would say we've already gotten to a place where if I'm no longer here, our firm is in great place moving forward. Like maybe we're not going to grow as much to your question, but like, there's no question we're going to continue to get a ton of referrals. We get a ton of referrals each year. We're still going to be able to keep our workshops active and get a lot of assets from that. Like, will our YouTube channel go away? Yeah, it will. Will our, some of those other resources keep on go away? Yeah, they will. But, we may not grow at a rapid pace we're doing now, but it will still be really strict. So, but to answer your question, like the short answer is no, because I don't want to be arrogant with this comment, but content marketing is really hard. And you can't just train someone to do content marketing. They kind of have to have it. And people don't realize, like, there's not a lot of people out there that are successful with content marketing. Like, there's really not. I mean, if you ask any advisor on the street, tell me 20 people out there that do content marketing well in your financial planning space, I guarantee they can't name them, because it's so hard to do. And you can see, like, firms like us who have done it well, the rewards are plentiful because there's no competition. And so, like, I just don't really, like, I've tried to experiment with other people doing stuff, and, like, just truthfully, with all due respect, like, they just can't do it as well, and they don't have that charisma to really be good. But you have to remember too, like, I've put in thousands of reps of Toastmasters back in the day, workshops. I've done almost 1,000 videos on YouTube. Like, it takes a lot to get to a place. And again, I don't want to be arrogant. I just want to be truthful and honest. Like, that is a real thing. And so, I enjoy it. I'm good at it. It's my unique ability. Like, I don't see a reason for me to get out of it. Will we have someone eventually step up to it? I mean, we could. It's really hard, and you have to really put all your efforts towards it. So if someone were to try to do what I'm doing, like, they're just not going to do anything else and add no value to the firm unless this somehow works, which we don't even know if it is. So it's even worth taking that risk, knowing that we've already got it to work. But what I've noticed is, like, if I were to bring someone else on my YouTube channel or stuff like that, people don't come from other people. They come for me and my messaging, right? My personality.
My research may have led me astray here, but I read that you hired a former NBC4 anchor as your full-time media host, Mindy Dreyer. Tell me about that. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so she is actually a client of ours and just family friends. We've now done a ton of media together. We do a lot of TV spots together. She's also an anchor on Spectrum News, which is all of Ohio. She also has a radio show that we host with her. So it's a lot of fun, and it just helps a lot in our community of bringing people together. So, like, we'll do a lot of events, and she'll MC me and she'll interview me, and she stands for a lot of the things that we stand for as a firm. So it just helps us put us on another platform. So back to your other question, like, how do you plan on doing that with current team members? Well, we just went out and did it with someone in the community. So kind of to answer your question, like, we kind of have done it already, but also we don't want Mindy to answer any retirement planning questions because that's not her expertise.
Right. That is the most honest answer about founder dependency I have heard a leader give on this show, and Joe is not deflecting it. He is explicitly choosing not to solve it and explaining the calculus behind that choice. The consumer side insight underneath the choice is the one I want every leader listening to take from this episode. Consumers want to know and experience the humans behind the brand. Large enterprise firms have become increasingly faceless. That is an unfilled position that smaller, more deliberate firms are now occupying. The lesson for a multi-billion-dollar firm is not that every firm needs a single founder at the center. The principle is actually replicable in several ways. Founders becoming more present in firm content, CEOs and executives showing up consistently rather than delegating it, individual advisors building their own spheres of influence on their own channels. The configuration matters less than the commitment to putting recognizable humans at the center of the firm's public presence. Joe has done a remarkable job of humanizing Peak's brand by being the face of it. For the firms in our audience operating at a different scale, the question is who at your firm could be doing that, and what would it take to support them? All right, Megan, tell me a little bit about your title, Director of Standards. Like, how did that come to be?
It kind of started, I feel like, as a running joke. If you ask Joe what that means, he'll say it's because I yell at people all day. If you ask me what that tangibly means in all seriousness, it's holding extreme accountability and coaching. As I had mentioned before, we have extreme standards. We literally just had posters printed of our top standards that we're going to have in every workspace here at the firm. And it's constantly holding people accountable to that. And so it could be, to give you a prime example, it could be something as extreme. I've been known and coined for this video game talk that I give of getting on an intern call with all 30 plus of our interns at 7:30 in the morning and telling them, like, you guys need to grow up, stop playing video games, invest in your future. And it can be as simple as literally today, I walked into the bathroom and I'm like, toilet paper roll is upside down. Let's change this. All right, now let me go tell everyone who's around me why it was the case and why we need to change this moving forward, because every single little thing matters. And so it's so fulfilling for me. I love getting to be a coach, and I care so much about our standards.
I imagine that you're kind of the engine room of the firm. So I'd love your perspective on that same question. Like, what have you found that's, you say to yourself, oh gosh, it used to really work this way, but it just doesn't work anymore and we need to rethink it?
The first thing that comes to mind is a motto that we've had. It kind of started in the marketing department, but it's honestly across our whole firm at this point. And it is, how can we make things simpler and get the same result? And so I know you're talking about client experience, for example. We are looking at some of the events that we are doing are just our processes and systems. And it's like, how can we make this simpler? How can we still get the same successful results there? And it sounds like a really simple and easy concept, but it can be harder than it sounds and would seem at times. But it is so fruitful. It is so productive. And sometimes I just think back to, to your point, a day in 2023, 2024, or a system and process that we had, and I just laugh. I'm like, Megan, you're so silly. Like, that was so cute. You thought that was really efficient and so productive, and look at where it is today. And so we're always trying to grow and improve in that regard. And that motto's been huge for us, very transformative this year, and we expect it to be ongoing.
So I'll wrap us up here with one final question for each of you. Your stated growth goal for 2026 is to bring in $500 million in new assets, and that's on a $630 million AUM firm. So it's almost double. Megan, from your perspective, what is going to need to be true? And you're the director of standards, so think about it through that lens. Like, what's going to need to be true about the firm in order for that to be a realistic plan?
This is perfect because it comes down to exactly what my role is in that title, and that is our standards cannot waver. If anything, they continue to elevate. That comes through extreme accountability and extreme coaching. And so we have to be holding to our standards. All of our team members are constantly coaching. For example, that next wave of 30 plus interns that we're going to have this summer, everyone has to be coaching because we have to be training up and developing future leaders as we continue to grow and scale.
And Joe, as you look ahead, even beyond that 500 million net new asset stated growth goal for 2026, like what gets you really excited about the future of peak retirement planning?
Yeah, I mean it's exciting to just know. I mean, we have a saying here that we want to be the best and not the biggest. So I will literally put my foot down if I ever have to. If our standards lower, as Megan's saying, like I will put the foot down and say we're done growing. Like it's just not. The clients that we've committed to are going to get served extremely well. We're not putting our growth ahead of that. So that's our saying, best, not the biggest. Now, what I do say on that is though, is like everyone loves growth. It's exciting. It's impactful. It's fulfilling. So if we can be the best, our next goal is then how do we be the biggest? And that's always been our focus is that's a secondary thought. But it's unrealistic for us to think that we're not going to grow with knowing our current situation. We've got a young team. We've got an excited team. We've got an ambitious team. We've got the content behind us. We've got the marketing machine, the hiring machine. We got the branding. Like everything's in our favor. And I just think of it as like a hockey stick curve of growth, right? If Peak's a stock right now, I think it's a pretty good investment. Is the way I like to see it. And so if I'm standing here today, I could reasonably say that it would be very possible for us to be one of the biggest RIAs out there in the future, just knowing where we're going and what we're doing. So,
well, thank you so much for sharing your story with me. It's fascinating, and truly the growth is remarkable. So I hope you feel very proud about what you've built, the impact that you've had, and what is to come. I want to come back to where I started this episode with the industry narrative that says the future of independent advice belongs to the largest firms, the trillion-dollar enterprises, the 100 billion consolidators, the narrative that says small firms have to sell, merge, or fade. Peak retirement planning is a one data point counter argument. A sub-billion firm growing at a percentage rate the industry assumes is reserved for early-stage startups. Not because they got lucky with a viral moment, but because they made a structural decision in 2021 to build the firm around content and marketing first, and to organize everything else, the advisory work, the talent strategy, the hiring funnel, the training program, the office model, around the engine that brings clients in. There are 4 things in this conversation I want every leader in our audience to take with them, and none of them require you to operate at peak scale to apply. The first is the orientation shift. Marketing as an upstream function that informs product, service delivery, and client experience, not as a downstream function that exists to promote decisions already made. Most billion-dollar firms still treat marketing as the latter. Peak treats it as the former. Even firms that will never replicate Peak's intensity can take something from that orientation. The second is the human at the center principle. Consumers want to know the people behind the brand. Large enterprise firms have become increasingly faceless, and that is an unfilled position your firm can occupy, whether through your founder, your executive team, or your individual advisors building their own spheres of influence on their own channels. The configuration matters less than the commitment to putting recognizable humans at the center of the firm's public presence. The third is the talent bet. The pool of experienced CFPs is finite and increasingly competitive. The pool of college graduates interested in financial planning is significantly larger, and the firms that build their own talent at the level of rigor Peak is putting behind it will, over time, have stronger cultural alignment, lower acquisition costs per advisor, and a longer tenured bench. The multi-billion firms with resources to make that bet at scale are leaving a real opportunity on the table if they're not thinking about this in the same way. The fourth is the discipline around content itself. Joe writes his own books. The marketing team's final filter is, what would Joe pick apart? Joe has taken a firm public position against AI-generated content. As more of the industry uses AI to scale content production, the firms whose voice remains unmistakably human will increasingly stand out. Peak is operationalizing that insight before the wave fully arrives. Peak is the smallest firm by assets we've featured on this show. They are also the fastest growing. The two facts together are not a coincidence. They're a consequence of one firm being willing to commit at a level most firms are not. That is what a growth leader looks like, regardless of size. If Peak's story challenged you to think about whether your firm is organized as a financial planning business that markets or as a media business that delivers financial planning, the single most valuable thing you can do for the show is please leave us a review. It is quick and it helps other growth-minded leaders in our industry find these conversations, but most importantly, helps us keep bringing them to you. We really do read every single review. I'd also love to hear what resonated with you. Find me on LinkedIn and share your key takeaways. For more growth resources for your firm, visit ficompartners.com/insights. And if your firm is ready to take marketing-enabled organic growth seriously, that's what we do every day at Ficom Partners. We'd love to talk. Thank you to today's guests, Joe Schmitz Jr. and Megan Casselberry of Peak Retirement Planning. To our producers at Pod Pony and my executive assistant, Kristen George, thank you. I'm Meg Carpenter, CEO and co-founder of Ficom Partners and your host of Growth Leaders of Wealth Management. See you in the next episode.